was my 5-year-old daughter. And she said, gee, Dad, let's go and ride that great big roller coaster over there. You know, and we got over there and we got up and they said, you can go and stand at number 8 on the loading platform. You know, and I said, no. I said, you're not going to let that little girl ride. You know, and the man just looked at me and he said, not only are we going to let that little girl ride, but we're going to let you ride. And up the hill we went, listening to that back ratchet going tick, tick, tick. It was like the end of your life. You were going to be doomed. And then there was the ride. I don't remember anything about it. I think I shut my ears. I think I shut my eyes. Geez, I got back to the loading station. I said, never heard again. My daughter just jumped right up out of the roller coaster car and said, let's go again. And I said, all right, let's go again.
In 1974, I wrote an article for the New York Times called The Quest for the Ultimate Roller Coaster. I found there were a lot of other roller coaster nuts. I got about 10,000 letters. All these people saying, I thought I was the only one. Sort of closet roller coaster riders. The Quest for the Ultimate Roller Coaster, my New York Times article, really changed things. It was another thing that was responsible for the roller coaster boom. I didn't know it at the time.
My wife doesn't particularly like roller coasters. And when we got married, we made our own vows, and she said that she would love, honor, cherish, and ride the occasional roller coaster. And she has honored that. She looks upon my passion with bemused tolerance.
We've come a long way since I started in this thing. We started out with one roller coaster, went 40 feet off the ground, and the top speed was about 30 miles an hour. And it was a pretty exciting coaster because it had sharp corners and things like that. We hadn't learned a great deal about turning and curving and what happens to the people when you do some of these things. They finally got up to 75 feet high, and at about that time we started working on corkscrews that go upside down, and that was a little more exciting than most of the things that had happened before. And in the case of Desperado here, of course, we have a couple of buildings and a casino we had to deal with. And when I look at one of these rides, after it's all up and running and all this, I can hear people screaming and go stand around by the train, and they get off and how great it was, and it's what makes it all worthwhile. I think everyone in the world knows by now that I don't ride the things anymore, and I've ridden enough of them in my time to know what they do, and I've just given up going on these that are this big.
– 42 years ago, I was reading an American magazine and saw a picture of a roller coaster. I was very impressed, and my father said, let's build one. And that was the first roller coaster in Japan. Nowadays, Japanese people ride roller coasters, throwing their arms up and screaming with excitement. But in the early days of coasters, they would grip their handrail, shut their eyes, and hold their heads down. So much so, there were injuries caused by people banging their heads. They were too shy to show their feelings. As for the White Canyon at Yomiuri Land, Government regulation used to be very, very strict about building in wood, but recently they have been relaxed. But building wooden roller coasters in Japan is much more expensive than building them in steel.
Part of the fun of the roller coaster is that you can't see all of it. So the surprise and the mystery of the ride is part of that which captivates you about the ride.
A good roller coaster is almost like a good movie. It has to have a narrative flow. It has to have a beginning, a middle, an end. A great roller coaster has a sense of drama about it. It's not just components.
The Beast in Cincinnati, Ohio at Kings Island is one of those coasters that can never be photographed completely because it goes out into the woods. It sprawls over this huge area. And part of the joy of that ride is it goes into different elements. It comes out of this brake run and goes into a tunnel, a rather long tunnel. It comes out of the tunnel and then you're racing through the woods. There's just no way to encapsulate that ride unless you ride it.
I know about building good coasters and not so good ones. You can thrill people with the first drop. But if you keep up the level of excitement all the way around, you'll terrify people so much, and they'll never want to ride your coaster again.
Whenever there is a scent of a new ride, the enthusiasts get probably overexcited and almost go to the lengths of breaking the law to try and gather enough information. When I first heard about the claims of the big one for height and dimension, they were making claims for a 235 feet high lift hill. At first I thought, well, this is fantastic, this is going to be the largest ride in the world. I immediately started to think that, well, what is the height of this lift hill then? So I decided to make a trip to Blackpool to find out the correct height. I climbed up the lift hill to the top and dropped a plumb line off the side and measured it 4 or 5 times to ensure accuracy, which turned out to be 214 feet, which is obviously a difference between the 235 foot claimed. And I then realised that this is the difference is the height of the pleasure beach above sea level.
That drop there, has it been done before? I don't think it has. Not as steep as that. It literally leaves a bloody track. It leaves a track as it's coming down. It's in air, suspended in air. It must be, because the velocity, the air must lift it off the track and everything. There must be a little gap between all the wheels. There's got to be. You can never have everything putting up. So it must float. It must float.
There is a ride at Kennywood, which is the second mega coaster to be built. Now there, they have a very steep drop that goes down a cliff, but the ride and the pull-up of the ride aren't very high at all. But of course, as it's going down a cliff, they claim that their first dip is slightly longer than ours, but it starts from a very low height. Ours is just the highest roller coaster, and at the moment we think the fastest roller coaster in the world.
This will always be the fastest roller coaster in the world because we're not starting at 0 miles an hour or kilometers an hour when we come over the hill. We are going about 18 miles an hour, so that's how we hit over 80 miles an hour at the bottom. So for all those roller coaster builders out there, you're going to have to go about 260 feet in the air to beat us.
So yes, there's envy. And there's one-upmanship amongst the curious breed of people who run amusement parks. But I think that the main people who benefit, of course, are the public, because they end up getting bigger and better rides.
It must be a wonderful experience. I'd love to have a do, but common sense prevails with me.
I look at it with a lot of longings, especially when I look at this big dip, and I really would have enjoyed that, I know, very much.
The ultimate roller coaster is always just around the next bend. The ultimate roller coaster is just going to be built next year. I can't believe what they've done with roller coasters already.
One character somewhere through the years said the ultimate roller coaster is one where everybody comes back to the station dead. Now, that's a little bit too wild to suit me and most people, I think.
I'm not sure I would want my dream roller coaster to be built. If it were built, then I would want another dream.